I'm 23 years old, so I'm in this weird space of not being old at all, but, kind of being old enough to start feeling weirdly old. It's weird. One of the things that I really enjoyed when I was younger, though, was anime movies. I didn't watch a buttload of subbed anime when I was a kid, but when I did start watching subbed anime, one of the first things I discovered were anime movies for the series that I was watching at the time. Specifically, Naruto movies. Now, hate on Naruto as much as you'd like, but the Part 1 Naruto movies were pretty solid, had great animation, and in general, they were super fun. And for a while, this got me thinking. I feel like anime movies stopped being so common at some point without me realizing. One Piece still gets a movie here and there, and so does Dragon Ball, I guess. And hell, we already have a Boruto movie. But I just feel like there's less and less of these nowadays, especially for new franchises. I sat down and started to think about which new series would probably have the best anime movie, and of course it came down to My Hero Academia. So, as I'm talking about how much I love a My Hero Academia movie, of course, within a week or so, one gets announced. Seriously, I'm starting to worry that we're actually living in a simulation or something, because I guessed the My Hero and Black Clover games into existence, and now this. But honestly, a My Hero Academia movie is a fantastic idea, and even though we don't know anything about the movie at all, I'd like to throw some ideas into the ring. I actually started working on this video before the movie got announced, but thankfully no details for the movie have been released, so anything goes as far as what I'd like for the movie. So let's go. Okay, so my ideal macadamia movie. I'm going to be twisting some stuff around, so I just automatically expect these movies to not be canon, so some stuff might not make sense where it's placed in the timeline, but that's what we're going to be doing, so deal with it. The movie is set during summer vacation, but it's also set right between Mirio and Deku meeting Overhaul for the first time, and their meeting of the heroes discussing the upcoming hideout raid. I did this because I obviously want Mirio in the movie, and the best way to have him in is for him to still have his quirk. So the Class 1A and Class 1B students are all going on a trip to, drumroll, America, specifically to Hollywood. I mean, since My Hero Academia is sort of a meta-commentary on Western superheroes, I think that the first movie being a commentary on big Hollywood films would be super fitting. And obviously there's some other stuff in the story that links it to Hollywood, especially with all the news of the dark underside of Hollywood that we've been getting this year, but we're going to get to that soon. So both of our classes go to the US along with Aizawa, All Might, and Present Mike. I just wanted to have him in there. The heroes who run a major Hollywood studio want to showcase some of the best rising students and heroes from Japan, and since All Might sees it as a way for Deku to not only possibly have a standout I'm here moment, but All Might also has a friend waiting on him in the US with some important news, the students end up making the trip. Upon reaching Hollywood, we're introduced to a few new heroes. The heroes who run the studio are actually a family of heroes, and the students are shocked to find out that not only are the parents some of the highest ranking heroes even in international rankings, but even their youngest child, who's only 5, is ranked in the top 5 out of the US heroes. So we have Overwhelm, the father, Relma, the mother, Elasta, the daughter, wonder what she does, and Divine, the son. The family welcomes our characters. They set them up in a giant mansion, and since they arrive at night, everyone sleeps and gets a good night's rest, except for Deku. Deku has a strange feeling, so he gets up and gets lost looking for the kitchen when trying to get a glass of water. He finds Divine in a room practicing his quirk, and it becomes clear to Deku that not even Divine really knows what his quirk can do. It's almost as if his quirk can do whatever it is that he pleases, but the quirk is also pretty volatile, so Divine's parents make him train it constantly. Deku worries that this may be too much for a 5-year-old to take on, and trips on a vial as he walks towards Divine, breaking it and letting its contents leak out onto the floor. Divine cleans it up with his quirk, but he does a really bad job, and explains that the contents of those vials are something that his dad buys him in order to help Divine control his quirk better. Deku wonders if the same thing could help him control One for All even better, and Divine gives him a vial to try. Deku decides now isn't the time and place, but he takes it just in case, even though he tells himself that he definitely won't need to use it. Morning comes and our heroes are treated with a trip around town and a tour of the famous Hollywood studios where all of their favorite movies are made. A lot of studio executives are pretty interested in getting Bakugo and Shinso to play some of the villains in their upcoming films, but they both turn those offers down. The other students also get a lot of similar offers for various roles, and a few even take some. Aizawa allows this because he feels like it'll be a good way for the students to get some real life work done, and also since the acting is a cover for some Quirk training, since all of the studio heads have been replaced with teachers from the #1 American Hero Academy. Overwhelm approaches Deku and wants Deku to have the lead role in his film, which just happens to be a film about All Might's early days as a hero, and specifically includes All Might's hero debut. He goes after Deku specifically because Deku has a similar quirk to All Might. Deku jumps at this opportunity. All Might right now is elsewhere, meeting up with his American friend, who is revealed to be an old acquaintance of Gran Torino's, who was also a friend of one of the previous holders of One for All. It's revealed that All Might is actually here because a villain that belonged to one of his predecessors is showing some new activity, even though that villain was believed to be dead. All Might's contact reveals that there's a dark underside to Hollywood, and he says that it was a mistake for All Might and the students to go there. We cut to the training and filming, and each family member interacting with different students. Relma, whose quirk is to create barriers and portals, is on set with all of Class B and challenges them to land the finger on her, while she plays the role as the big bad in the film. Kendo and the other Class 1B students go for it, and thanks to their combined efforts, they get very close to landing a hit on her. However, her power is just too much for them. On another set, we have Alasta taking on Bakugo, Todoroki, Kaminari, Jiro, and a few other 1A students, with Present Mike and Aizawa watching. Bakugo and Todoroki try to take the lead, but they have trouble because Alasta's quirk allows her to manipulate the elasticity of her body and even everything in her surroundings, including Todoroki's ice and fire, Bakugo's explosions, Jiro's sound waves, and Kaminari's electricity. She uses her quirk to bounce all of their powers back at one another. Bakugo, Todoroki, and Kirishima manage to land a few hits on her, but they actually rip part of her outfit and it exposes some of her chest, causing Bakugo to look away and miss his final attack. On the next set, we see Ochako, Momo, Mineta, Koda, Tokoyami, Ida, Toru, and Sero taking on Divine. Divine has some trouble at first with the wild mix of quirks that he has to take on, but the students try to take it easy at first since he's only a 5-year-old. Divine tells him that Realma placed her strongest barrier on his skin so they can hit him as hard as they want without actually worrying about damaging him too bad, and even if they do, his quirk actually heals him passively, so he should be fine. They come up with a plan and actually corner Divine, but Divine has a flashback to his father telling him that he absolutely is not allowed to lose ever, and we start seeing some of the dark aspects to his parents in this flashback. Divine takes his vial and absolutely wrecks the students by swapping and warping their quirks. Instead of Ochako lessening the gravity an object gets, it reverses. Toru actually becomes visible, so that's a good way for us to see how she looks like without her power on, and other weird things happen with everyone's quirk, so they're unable to continue until Divine shuts it off. On the main set, we have Overwhelm acting as a villain and Deku reenacting All Might's hero intro. Mirio is there watching, but Overwhelm isn't impressed by Deku's performance and tells Deku that he wishes Mirio had Deku's quirk, since Mirio actually looks a little more like All Might and is way more impressive. It would also help the movie because Mirio is sort of well known, whereas Deku isn't. Right before Overwhelm attempts to ask Mirio if they can switch, Deku tells him to wait, and remembers All Might telling him that he wants Deku to announce himself to the world in a spectacular way. Deku digs in his pocket and takes the vial, hoping that it'll give him the edge that he's looking for to impress Overwhelm. He takes the vial and instantly feels strange. However, the vial allows Deku to use a ridiculous One for All full cal 50%. Mirio stands up in a shock and questions how this is possible, and Deku tries to blitz Overwhelm, but Overwhelm proves to be too much still because his quirk allows him to boost all of his stats to be better than the person he's facing. Deku gives it his all and goes up to 75%, but it puts a huge strain on his body. As he's about to land a devastating blow on Overwhelm, he hears All Might and another mysterious voice yell, "That's enough," and in his shock, Overwhelm lands a crushing blow, sending him into the set. As the day wraps, Divine heals everyone back to how they were before their filming and training sessions. Deku looks around for All Might, but everyone tells him that All Might is still out and hasn't come back yet. Deku swears that he heard him, but gives up and they all go back to the mansion. All Might comes back and heads straight to Overwhelm's room and begins a conversation with him. Once again, Deku wanders and ends up in Divine's room, but Mirio follows him this time and finds Deku asking Divine for another vial so he can learn how to control One for All better. Deku looks a little disheveled in the scene, and Mirio uses his power to sneak around the room and grabs one of the vials that are in the boxes. Mirio feels strange and instantly ejects himself from the ground before hitting his head on the ceiling. Divine made Mirio's quirk stop working, and Mirio yells at him and tells him that he would have been killed if his quirk would have stopped working while he was intangible underground. Deku and Mirio chastise Divine, and Divine takes a few vials at once, and Mirio finally realizes what's in the vials. We cut to Bakugo and Todoroki in the basement of the mansion, which serves as a battle arena for heroes who want to train their quirks. This entire area is actually in a different realm set up by Relma, and most of the students are here to watch a rematch between Todoroki and Bakugo. Their fight starts, and it's extremely epic. Shinso, however, asks Relma how her power suddenly changed from earlier in the day, because he thought her power was to use barriers and portals. She gets caught by his quirk and has to answer honestly. Relma explains that the entire family uses a modified version of the drug, Trigger, that expands and enhances their quirks. Aizawa takes note of this and immediately restrains Alasta, who yells at her mom for spilling the secret, and Ryelma tells the students that they aren't allowed to leave now until she can get Divine to wipe their memories. We cut to Overwhelm and All Might arguing in the study, as All Might reveals that he knows that Overwhelm has been importing Trigger, and Overwhelm reveals that not only has he been importing it, but the entire family is actually addicted to it, and Hollywood in general has been flooded with the drug to the point where Overwhelm is a kingpin of sorts. He challenges All Might to do something about it and tells him that he knows that All Might can't use his quirk anymore. All Might tries to leave, and Overwhelm tells him that the entire trip was a trap to get the students addicted to Trigger by slipping it into their meals to make them into his slaves. All Might gets enraged by this and goes into his muscle form, but instantly comes out of it. Overwhelm passes All Might an enhanced version of Trigger that was made specifically for him, and tells All Might that if he takes it, he should be even stronger than he was in his prime. He tells All Might that if All Might can beat him, he'll be able to save the students. All Might turns this offer down and says that the students themselves aren't weak enough to fall for his plan and they'll get out on their own. But Overwhelm hits All Might with a brain explosion. Overwhelm is actually the villain of the older successor of One for All, and he tells All Might that he had a hand in killing his sensei. Upon hearing her name, All Might takes the vial and in one motion nearly teleports to Overwhelm with his speed and punches him with enough force to obliterate the entire upper wing of the mansion. Their fight begins. We switch back to Deku and Mirio. Mirio explains to Divine that the drug he's been taking is actually a drug that Night Eye and Mirio have been investigating. Upon hearing that he's taken an illegal drug, Deku freaks out and feels guilt. Divine uses this weakness in Deku's mind to control his body and force him to fight Mirio. Mirio doesn't want to fight Deku, but Divine uses his healing and mind control abilities to cause Deku to go 100% against Mirio, and Mirio struggles. Deku cries throughout this entire fight as his body is being torn apart and healed while fighting his friend. Divine says that Deku feels jealousy towards Mirio, and Mirio tries to break Deku's mind control by telling him that Deku is the best choice for One for All, not him. As he hears this speech, Divine starts to realize that what he's doing is wrong, and that he shouldn't depend on drugs to be a hero when there are heroes like Deku and Mirio who give it their all, especially since Deku started off with no quirk, and he's become as powerful and inspirational as he is now. Deku hears a voice in his head, and the voice tells him to be calm. He's heard this voice before, and he remembers it from earlier in the day during his fight with Overwhelm. The voice reveals itself to be an older holder of One for All, and it helps Deku break out of his mind control. Deku rushes Divine and hits him hard enough to completely shut off his powers. Mirio tells Deku that he'll watch Divine, but Deku needs to rush to All Might because of that explosion they heard earlier. We cut back to Relma and Alasta versus the students, and since they've both taken Trigger, their quirks are absolutely overwhelming the students. Relma alters the area that they're in, and Alasta uses her quirks to turn even the earth into a rubbery substance. Aizawa tells the students that they need to come up with a solution, and Momo comes up with a plan. Todoroki takes out all of the lights, and Tokoyami summons Dark Shadow to go absolutely berserk on Alasta and Relma in the dark. Momo creates a conduit for sound and attaches it to Bakugo. Momo tells Todoroki to fill the area with as much fire as he can, causing Bakugo to start sweating all over his body at an extreme rate. Bakugo feels like he's going to pass out, but he bears it. Jiro plugs in the present mic, and present mic sound waves lead all of the sweat on Bakugo's body to one very small point on his hand. And the sound waves also protect his body by vibrating at a frequency where they act as a sort of barrier of their own. Relma changes the area again to have light after her and Alasta bump into each other, and as soon as they do, they see Bakugo jumping right in front of them with a ball of his sweat in his hand and the craziest face we've ever seen him do while yelling "Die." He hits them with his newly formed attack, Tomahawk Bomber. Neto copies Todoroki's quirk, and together they form a 1,000-layer ice shield to block the students from the blast, and even with her last-minute shield, Bakugo takes out Relma and Alasta. They don't die, but they're out of commission. Because Relma's quirk stops, they're all back in the basement of the mansion, and all head upstairs to see what's going on with All Might and the others. Everyone reaches All Might outside and sees him taking on Overwhelm. Their battle is even crazier than All Might and All for One's battle, as they destroy entire areas of Hollywood. All Might's trigger starts to wear off, and Deku arrives just in time to grab All Might and move him away. Overwhelm then takes several vials of trigger and mutates into this grotesque form and starts taunting the heroes. Deku apologizes to All Might for using trigger without knowing what it was, but All Might feels as if Deku isn't the one talking. It's revealed that Deku is sharing his consciousness, without realizing it, with the previous holder of One for All, and that holder is All Might's sensei, Nana Tomura. Nana gives All Might a sad speech about how much of a splendid hero he's become, and how much of a splendid, amazing hero Deku is going to be. Divine shows up with Mirio and tells all the students to gather hands. After seeing his dad in such a mutated state, and seeing who the good guys really are, Divine tells them that he'll pool all of their power together into Deku, as well as the last bit of his healing power. He takes their energy, as well as All Might's, who still has some of his power from the trigger state. Everyone holds their hands together, and Divine puts his hand on Deku's back. Deku's body starts to pour out lightning. His clothes start to rip. His hair spikes up. The air around him is changed, and All Might sits back and can't believe what he's seeing. Deku says, "One for all." Divine full cowling. He rushes towards Overwhelm, and as their fists clash, Overwhelm tells Deku that he'll never be All Might, that there's always going to be someone better, and Overwhelm will always summon more power than the person he's fighting. And Deku replies, "You're right, I can't be All Might, but I don't want to be All Might. That's not why he chose me. All Might chose me to be better than All Might." And with that, Deku summons his full power and screams, "World of Smash," absolutely wrecking Overwhelm with a surprise kick that sent him deep into the earth. After this, the government steps in and covers up the entire thing, and the students all go back home and everyone's mission was fulfilled. They all got some training in, they all actually got small roles in films, and Deku and All Might have a great moment where Deku tells All Might that he understands why All Might is so hurt over his sensei, but Deku shared some of her emotions for a little bit and says that she couldn't be any prouder of him, and All Might repeats that he feels the same way about Deku. And done. What do you guys think of my plot for a My Hero movie? Would you like to see it animated? Do you think the movie we're actually going to get can stack up to this? How would you improve what I wrote? Let us know in the comment section below, and until you do that, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.